Talk about Kevin Durant.
Yeah, we can talk about whatever you would like, Kyle.
Wow. Okay, great. Fetty Wap. No, I'm joking.
Uh,
Uh,
I'm in.
You're not. It's okay.
I'll just act like I am.
Okay. Um, just live listen to Fetty Wap's first album
Yeah.
and get James' reactions. No. So I think Kevin Durant is maybe the most fascinating player when we talk about, like, we were just talking about LeBron. And whether you think LeBron is the best player of all time or the second best or top five or whatever, there's not really an argument that he is one of the greatest players to ever suit up.
Yeah.
There's not a logical argument anyway. If you're just a hater who's like, he's not top 10, he's lost the final 6 times, whatever. I don't have anything for you there. But for the most part, the consensus among logically thinking people is that LeBron is one of the 2 or 3 greatest players to ever suit up. I don't think Kevin Durant falls in that bucket of, yeah, hey, he's just on track that when he retires, he's going to be a consensus top X guy.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard people on podcasts call him a top 10 player ever. I've seen other people who are like, he's not even in the top 25. And I think it's so, so interesting, just his career arc and how things went from, he was in Oklahoma City and they get to the finals, and then James Harden leaves and they run into the Warriors in 2016, and we're up 3-1, and then they lose that series, and then he goes to Golden State and he wins a couple of titles, and then he gets hurt, and then he goes to Brooklyn to team up with Kyrie. That doesn't really work out. So he goes to Phoenix, and that hasn't really worked out. He's undeniably an incredible player. But then you look at kind of his career resume, and okay, he's got the 2 finals MVPs. But outside of that, I think he's won 1 playoff series since he left Golden State. Maybe 2. I think they won 2.
So look, I think he's a top 20 player of all time. I don't know that I'm willing to put him in the top. Like, I'm not willing to put him in the top 10.
Right.
I mean, there have been players who have just won a lot more than him.
Right.
That you have to respect and put in that. And even his numbers, like 27.3 points per game, like that's amazing. And, he's won 4 scoring titles. He's got an MVP.
Right.
Come in second like 3 times.
There's no deny. That's what's so interesting about it.
Yeah.
Is nobody will deny that he is one of the best scorers to ever lace up his shoes.
Yeah.
And he is so unique. And he's 7 foot, and he can shoot it, and he can handle it, and he can do all this stuff. And he loves the sport. He clearly loves basketball as much as anybody. But when it comes to the not GOAT, but the all-time conversation, there's a resume that goes into that. Okay, all-star appearances, all NBA, but at some point, like, playoff success starts to matter.
Mm-hmm.
Talked about this with Jamal Murray yesterday. Like, man, Jamal Murray is really highly regarded because of what he does in the playoffs. And now you have Kevin Durant, who's bounced around to a bunch of different teams. He might bounce around to a new team this offseason if he tries to force his way out of Phoenix. I don't know, man.
It's tough because you are left with, I mean, like, statistically speaking, I think you could compare him and James Harden. Like, James Harden's career, I don't want to put them in the same ballpark, especially because one has a title and one doesn't, or multiple titles, right? But James Harden, again, bounced around all over the league. James Harden is, put up a triple-double season. I think career-wise, we're talking about a 10-time All-Star, a 3-time scoring champ, 7-time All-NBA player, but also statistically speaking, a player that averages 24 points a game, and like all of his numbers are huge. I mean, he's the assist numbers are incredible. Like, I don't know. Like, I think that there's a group of players from this generation that are phenomenal, and whether they're winners or not, I don't know if you can really put them in that bucket. Like, if they're guys that you just like consider like straight up winners. But I also think that this era is sullied by the super team.
Yeah.
And sort of like the way that guys almost cheapened what they were. And so, Like, I'm never gonna take away anything from Steph Curry because I don't think his run had
Mhm.
anything to do with being a super team. It had everything to do with a group of players coming up together and becoming great together, and then
Mhm.
supplementing that with one great player to help them win a couple extra titles.
Mhm.
Either way, there's still, to me, like, there, you can't put him in this, but it's really the LeBron and then the attempted super teams that I think the failed super teams have done so much damage. If you look at how many times, the Knicks go out and sign three guys, what was Amari and Carmelo, and
Mhm.
like all of like there's all of these attempts at it,
Yeah.
and it just works so few times. Like, they still, for the most part, they got beat by good teams that were constructed the right way, that were
Mhm.
built through the draft, that like became great because of, the combination of players. And even, I think Durant had an opportunity to be that.
Mhm.
Like, he did. He had an opportunity to be that in OKC.
Yep.
But I also, like I've told you that, and I've told this story before. Like, I had a conversation with him during that, what was it, 2016?
2016, yeah.
Yeah, where they took a big lead on the Warriors, and then the Warriors just kept coming at them, and then they end up losing. Was it Game 6 in Oakland? And I had asked a question to him and Russell Westbrook in the post game press conference that didn't go over well because they just kept, like, it was just the two of them. It's like, what are you doing? Like, 59 shots between the two of them,
Mhm.
3 consecutive games. And this is an era, like, which seems so far ago, but where the teams are taking like between 70 and 80 shots per game.
Mhm.
Almost every shot is coming from those guys. And again, Russell Westbrook stared me down the whole way out of the building. Like, he did not like the question at all. And then I had a conversation with Durant afterwards and said, look, man, I'm not trying to throw you under the bus there. That's not what that was meant. He
Mhm.
goes, look, he's like, I fully understand it. He's like, but that's the pressure that's on us here. Like,
Mhm.
every second since the day I landed in Seattle, the whole entire time I've been on this team, they want me to shoot the ball every single time I touch it. And
Mhm.
it is a lot of pressure. It literally means that everything that it's all on me and it's
Mhm.
all on Russ. And so, yeah, it maybe we did forget about guys for sure, but that's kind of what we're being
Right.
told, and that's how we've been. It's like just beat into our head that that is exactly who we have to be. And so I, like, got a new respect for him. I also, at that moment, I knew very well he was not going back because he
Yeah.
didn't want that anymore.
Mhm.
Like, there's a lot of pressure to just being somebody who everything rides on.
Yeah.
And you can see it with the Kings. Everything rides on Fox and Sabonis.
Mhm.
Fox breaks the tip of his finger and their season ends.
Mhm.
We didn't see it, but
Literally by a fingertip.
their season ended when he broke his fingertip and he couldn't be the same player.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of pressure to put on somebody. And so I get it. So I don't blame him for bouncing around a little bit. Not everybody gets to be, Dirk Nowitzki, who stays with one team, or Kobe Bryant, who gets to
Mhm.
stay with one team, or John Stockton. We can go back. This used to be something that happened. It's just not anymore.
Yeah.
And guys get older and they want to go win. So,
Well, and that's where the Kevin Durant discussion turns off of what normally the road it normally goes down.
mhm.
Because you say as guys get older, they want to win. Okay, so Kevin Durant assessed his situation in Oklahoma City and said this is not a situation that's conducive to winning. Because remember, in that series, not only were they up 3-1 on Golden State, they were that nuclear game from the game 6 from Klay Thompson from closing that series out.
Mhm.
And I had forgotten about this. Game 3 they win by 28. Game 4 they win by 24. Like, they dominated those games.
Yeah.
They were the foil to that version of the Warriors. That they were that team that when the Warriors went small, they could stay bigger and function in ways that other teams couldn't. And he looked at that and went, "This isn't conducive to winning. This isn't conducive to. I'm going to go to Golden State because that's where I can win, and it's democratic, and they play the right type of basketball and this and that." But then he leaves, and at that point, it was like, for what? Now what are you searching for? And I think that's where I think there were people who turned against him when he went from Oklahoma City to the 73 win Warriors. And then I think you had other people who just kind of threw their hands up, A, because of his social media, the fact that he's a normal human on social media.
Yeah, that's always a mistake. Yeah.
God forbid. But B, then he goes and teams up with Kyrie Irving in Brooklyn. And then for some reason, they go get James Harden for whatever reason.
But you also have to remember, Kyrie goes on a boycott, basically. Like,
yeah, in the 2020 season.
Yeah, I mean, he just
he just quit.
I'm not going to play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
like,
now
I'm not going to get vaccinated. I'm not going to play.
Right.
And just held his team hostage and wasted a year of Kevin Durant's career.
Yes. So Kevin Durant says, okay, this isn't what I'm looking for. I want out. I want to go to Phoenix. So goes to Phoenix. Okay, you're going, okay, that's not a bad situation. You know, Devin Booker, and they get it. But then they go get Bradley Beal.
Yeah.
It's like, for what? What? I don't know what he wants. I don't know what he's looking for. Because I know that people always talk about, okay, Draymond is the reason he left Golden State. Like, no, man, that blow up happened because he was going to leave. Draymond got pissed because he knew Kevin Durant was out the door. Like, that's what happened there. Go read Ethan Strauss's book on it. He wrote a whole book that Kevin Durant hates him for. So go tap into that. It explains the whole thing. But he basically didn't. One of the key things was he didn't like the fact that, like, Mo Spates got as much love as he did. He's like, I'm Kevin Durant. Why are people cheering this guy?
Yeah.
Like, I'm he. And so he bounced. And like, that's what I think is just so interesting with him. There's all these reasons he's so great on the court. And I don't think there's any denying that. But then you start to dig into the resume some, and you're like, well, it doesn't really, with other kind of great players from this era, it doesn't quite stack up. And then you get into all the, man, he's been on, 4 teams now? He might go to a 5th team this offseason.
Yeah, but
then the fact he bounced back from a torn Achilles and is as good as he is.
I think we're really hard on him, but then we ignore the fact that LeBron James couldn't win a championship in Cleveland, and so he took his talents to South Beach and goes and wins a couple of titles with a super team. And then he goes back to Cleveland and wins a title and has this great run of, like, 4 straight years of Cleveland, of Cavs versus Warriors. But then he goes to the Lakers and chases fame and fortune again. And so
odd.
So basically, we're talking about a player who's played in 4 different cities, although one of them is twice, and joined super teams every step of the way. And like, he found success in the bubble, but outside of that has not found success at all in LA. Has not been able to put them over the top. And so I think we are really, really hard on one guy, and it's probably because the one guy doesn't practice what he says in the mirror before he goes out and says it. And that's just
a great point.
I mean, it's straight up.
Great point.
There's certain about being polished and really not giving anything real of yourself. And unfortunately for Kevin Durant, he's not that guy. And multiple times he's given too much of himself and made it known too much about what he feels. But, like, I don't know.
That's why I like him.
Yeah.
Like, wow, a normal human. Incredible.
That's what, like,
when you say mean things about him, he doesn't like it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, same.
I just thought that
he's like me.
There's a genuine person there.
Yeah,
there's
definitely.
a very genuine person. And it's not locked down by, like, some sort of caricature that he's created for himself. You know, like, there isn't, like, this moment where he does this and I'm going to go out there and be someone different. And I think we can, like, you can enjoy that about a guy like Draymond as well. But the problem is that Draymond isn't putting on any kind of fake. That's just, he's so far out there and has.
He's himself, but he's a jerk.
Well, he's a jerk, but he also is so ego driven that it just comes across as, like, bro, you're saying a bunch of stuff that you really don't get. That, like, I don't want to say, like, you rode coattails.
Sure.
But, like, you got to play with the 2 greatest shooters of all time.
Right.
The greatest shooters of all time.
Right. Yeah.
And it's not even close.
Yeah.
And you think that it's all you and you're acting like you're the godfather and get to talk to everybody in a certain way.
Yeah.
It's like, man, you're the guy who's cost that team so many times. They should have another title if it wasn't for you.
So speaking of should have had another title, that's the other fascinating aspect of, you brought up James Harden.
Yeah.
If Kevin Durant stays in Oklahoma City and doesn't go to Golden State, I don't think the Warriors go away. Maybe they get another title, maybe they don't. But James Harden probably gets at least one.
Mm.
They kept running into the Warriors and couldn't get over that hump.
Well, they pulled the trigger too quick on the James Harden situation there.
What do you mean?
Like, I mean, they traded him before because they were worried about having to pay him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if they would have just like kept them together and let Harden hit his prime,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that they would have been. You could have stopped them. Like, especially just the way that Russ plays.
Yeah.
Like, you have 3 players that are so incredibly unique in what they do. And I know there's only one ball, and that would have been really difficult for those guys to sit there and
Harden, Paul, and Westbrook? Or no,
No.
they traded Paul for Westbrook.
Yeah, Harden, Westbrook, and Durant. Like,
in Oklahoma City.
yeah.
Oh. I thought you were talking about the Rockets.
No.
Got you.
I know.
Okay.
I meant.
Yes. Okay, got it.
Yeah, OKC pulled the plug on the James
Yes,
Harden
got it,
experiment
got it.
too early.
Yeah.
But now we look at what they became, and it probably wouldn't have happened that way. They would not have. It would have been more Durant, less of Harden.
Mm-hmm.
Westbrook. Again, these guys are like undeniably great players in this
Mhm.
generation. But at the same time, could they have coexisted? And I don't think they could have. And
No.
Harden would have never been able to become who he is today.
No, I meant the Rockets.
Yeah.
Harden would have gotten, I think, at least one
No, very
with
possible.
the Rockets
Yeah.
had Kevin Durant not gone to Golden State. And the other that's the other aspect of this, you bring up LeBron. If LeBron goes back to Cleveland and Kevin Durant does not go to Golden State, LeBron gets more than one in that stretch, I imagine.
Probably.
Those Cavs teams were really damn good.
They were. I mean, they were flawed teams, but they were
really freaking good.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I know. I covered all of those playoff series. I mean, wild.
I just can't believe, and we talked about this a little bit with Damian yesterday. I just can't believe that in this era, there are still owners chasing the super team, quote unquote. Supplementing your roster, like you said, if you're the Mavericks and you think, hey, Kyrie is the missing piece, okay, that's one thing. But being Matt Ishbia and going, hey, you know what we need? Kevin Durant and Brad Beal. No, man, that's not the NBA anymore.
No.
That's not gonna play.
Yeah.
If you happen to have 3 stars that you bring up and they just kind of turn into superstars, a la Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and that's just how that goes, then awesome. But I think accumulating stars and going, hey, go be really good for a year, I don't think that's gonna work anymore.
No, I'm pretty sure you're right. But I do think that there are opportunities out there for redemption for Kevin Durant. And I think he could go to a team that hasn't won one, who hasn't been there, and go and help them push it over the top. Like, but I mean, you're looking at me like I'm about to say the Sacramento Kings.
I'm gonna pick a random team.
Well,
let's just name a team.
I mean, like, what would it mean if Durant were to go to a franchise that hasn't won a title since 1950 and step in and take a team that's good and make them great and take them to a title? I mean, I think that would be intriguing to watch. But I would also say with Minnesota, if he was to end up in Minnesota, if he was to end up in OKC, like, these are opportunities where, like, what kind of redemption story would that be for him to go back to OKC at the tail end and be part of a group of players that, you know, and could they come up with a package? Sure, they could come up with. They
could probably come up with the best trade package.
Yeah. Because you're talking about all the draft picks. You're talking about
good young players.
Yeah, like maybe you give up Giddey, maybe give Jalen Williams, and like, and then you go from there. But every situation is different, and how well they mesh together and what it would mean. Like, I don't know, but I do think there is still time for redemption for him. I just don't know that, like, getting traded again matters, like that it's going to help